Hello, hello. I hope you're doing well. I don't know how many have been following some of my lives lately, but I've been going through this crazy smashing open and a lot of frustration and anger had to be expressed. I think I did it accountably, but we're all being squashed right now. And to live through this density in a human experience has put us through a lot of stuff that made us victim and angry and frustrated and scared and kept us small and squashed us. And that's part of the whole human experience. We're now at a time where it's all smashing open and it's all coming up for clearance and it's all being pressured to be released, to be loved, to be cleared, to be no more. Because they're all crazy thought forms based on past and stories and frustration and traumas and emotions and stuff that is just visceral. It's the stuff that makes you wake up in the middle of the night and just in terror or worried about your survival or looking that you're an absolute failure or that you missed something or you're not going to ascend or you're not going to be good enough or that you're missing something. That's the one of the biggest ones. But it's all perfect. It's all happening for a reason in this crazy symphony of pressure, of how to describe it, of things that are happening in the world that crush us, that force us into isolation. Look at all the events that have happened in these past several years, all putting pressure on us. And we call it darkness and we call it density and all these kind of things. And yeah, where there's density, there's lack of light. And darkness has this reputation and we get to be victim to it. And we are squeezed by it and crushed by it and hurt by it and wounded by it. And it all creates this victimness of, and it's okay. It's part of the human process of the victimness, the shutting down. That's what the control is doing, is keeping us small and not seeing who we are. It's part of the process. It's required to crush us. If you follow philosophers like Rumi and others, they talk about how we're crushed so we can be cracked and the light can shine in, because we're so deeply in the story and so deeply in the programming and so deeply in a collective consciousness that has us controlled and suffering and using it to keep ourselves small. But we also came here to be small, to experience small, to experience pain, experience struggle, experience trauma, experience rising up, experiencing all these things. So it's a crazy push-pull. Now, this last couple weeks, I was in pain, I was in suffering, I was looking at my life and it was just like so frustrating, and I had a lot of what I call negative human experiences with women, and I know a lot of women have had the same with men, and there's no judgment of either polarity, but it was just crushing me, like I wasn't worthy and I was a bad person, and why couldn't I find people in my life that aligned? And then looking back at some of the stuff that happened in my childhood and with my mother and lineage stuff that my mother didn't even choose, and I don't blame her or whatever, but the stuff that came in was part of a collective that made me so angry and so frustrated over time at the wounds that showed up and how I was supposed to somehow adapt myself to make women feel safe and other things. It just crushed me, and then it made me not worthy, and the anger and the frustration was so hard. So I spoke a lot about the control of men and pleasing the women, and it was all by design. It was all by the collective design that everybody's crushing each other. And now that I can see underneath it, it had a purpose. It looked ugly, and it looked messy, and it looked like blame and shame and guilt and all these other things. But the more and more you look at what's crushing us and what's hurting us and what's making us suffer and feel pain and feel trauma, there's a love underneath it that can't be seen until you take a new perspective, you become an observer, you start to become aware that the illusion was so total, it made us somehow feel safe, even though we were in terror of survival and having to do work and race and try and fix and solve and all this kind of stuff, and made us so distracted that we couldn't even have a human life. It had a purpose. That density brought us all out of balance, and the system needs to come back into balance. So all this dark that was judged dark and bad and evil, as you start to become aware of the totality of the illusion and the darkness and the struggle and the pain and the suffering, you start to see that it forces correction. It'll either crush us to death, or it'll force correction. It'll force change. It'll force choice. It'll force self-love first. And that's the biggest lie that's come, is that love is outside of us. Love is in somebody else. Love is in a relationship. Love is in sex. Love is in living with someone. Love is having children. These are experiences of love. Sorry. These are experiences of love in separation and attachment and loving outside of ourselves. And that love requires us to give love, to receive love, and to make happy and to please, to be able to have another person be happy so that we can be happy. And then it puts ourselves behind this giant mountain of pleasing and doing, and then it turns into suffering and struggle and pain, when really the solution is in loving ourselves first, in feeling love, in starting to find when we are feeling in victim or blaming outside of ourselves, that we start to go inward and just start to hold ourselves and love ourselves. And this is going to sound really counterintuitive, because it's so different. I spent the last several weeks trying to lash out and express my anger and pain and other things in a controlled way so that I could be free. But truly loving ourselves is accepting whatever shows up and not judging it. Oh, I'm freaking angry, or I shouldn't be that way, or geez, I'm gonna hurt someone, or whatever. That's the time when we need to go inward. We need to go into a quiet room, get some pillows, get our frustration on, our anger on, our seething rage, our seething whatever is showing up, and sit with it. And you're going to find, as you sit with it and you let it come, and you feel it, and you're screaming and yelling into that pillow or whatever, and feeling the suffering and feeling the pain and feeling that whatever, there's a point when you get cried out, and there's that kind of amazing beauty of this void that shows up inside. There's the silence, and at that point you can't catch your breath, and you're just between sobs, and you're just between whatever, and everything just goes silent. And I'm pretty sure you've felt this before, but it's a magical place. And at that moment, you have this choice to feel empty and angry and frustrated, or to fill yourself with love for what you just experienced, for the intensity of that experience, for the intensity of whatever trauma or suffering or rage or whatever that you went through to find this facet of yourself. And just love it and hold it. Wrap your arms around yourself, laying in your snot and in your tears and suffering, and just hold that little part of yourself, that inner child, that part that got so enraged and angry and never got heard, and say, I'm here, I listen, I hear, love you. And in this last weeks, I felt the world was attacking my neighbors, the people that worked in my building, my people on my Facebook feed and friends, and I shared love with them, and they hated me afterwards, or they resented me, and they started to kind of just like vomit on me. And I got to see a picture of, okay, I'm not having to love outside myself. I'm not pleasing other people. I don't have to be better for them or be an example or love them in some special way. I have to love myself first. And then once you love yourself first, you're going to start to see the corrosiveness of that anger and that frustration and that seethingness and that victim and that like, fuck, when do I get served or whatever. And you start to make a choice. Do I want to be corrosive or do I want to love? And you can sit there with something that just makes you anger and bitter and just sit with it and just observe it. Stand 5 feet behind your head while you're watching yourself feel these emotions. You're going to see the density in the body, the contraction, the anger, the frustration, and it just leads to more. And as you feel that density and those strength of those emotions, you start to see that this is what we live in. Our nervous system is like this. And then you can sit for a second and say, okay, I'm going to choose love for a second. And then you can see the bubbles start to open and the body start to open. And you just like, okay, I'm okay right now, here and right now. There's nothing I have to do. In that moment, in that void, in that self-love, all of a sudden you can see the polarity, the light and the density, and the light and the density. And then you can start to see how much in your subconscious, in your unconscious choosing, are you choosing density because that is the only thing that you felt for such a long time, and that is safe because every time you opened a little bit, something came and it closed you off. That's what the world does, is it closes us off for a while, and then we get to start to be that flower, and it's like, oh, scary, okay? And then we start opening, and then eventually you start to realize that that's part of it. But not feeling the emotion of the density gets us trapped in the density. We get stuck in this bubble of, this is all I'm worthy of. And that worthy of is there. It's just a choice. The world will try and force us to be contracted and scared and angry, and it'll teach us all this stuff that tells us that we're not good enough, or loving outside ourselves is important, and when that other person has their problems or scared or whatever, then all of a sudden we're like, oh, we're losing them, and then we're scared again because we're going to lose all our love, where our love was here. And it's just like starting to just be the one that holds ourselves, starting to be that one that just constantly pumps love into every situation. There's light in this somehow, and I don't know what it is right now, but if maybe some kind words could happen, if maybe a gentle conversation, or even just a smile or whatever, can start to inject some light into the density, and then that density starts to break up. Like I said, it's crushed and you can't get out, and then it's open, and why is the difference? And can you imagine like being caked in mud? Each time it opens and closes and opens and closes, a little bit of the mud falls off, and the density gets lighter because you're cracking open. You're opening to the possibility of expansion as well as contraction. And we've only known contraction, when we're a victim, when we're angry, when we're frustrated, when we're all those kind of things. But how often do you express those? How often did your parents encourage you, and your light and your family and all the people around you encourage you to be really strong in your emotion and be accountable in your emotion? Don't lash out and hurt and be a nuclear bomb of all this stuff that's never been released. Start to release a little bit. Get okay where you can speak, and maybe in accountability, yell in a quiet room, or yell in a space agreed with a partner or something, where you can just like express your rage, but it's not at them or anyone. And then all of a sudden this permission comes out to feel strong emotions. This permission comes out to start milking your nervous system and opening and feeling that it's okay to feel rage and anger and wanting to punch a pillow and all this kind of stuff. And then something comes in that cracking open and closing and open and closing. And it's like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. My emotions can be strong. It's okay to feel bad and angry and sad and frustrated and concerned and whatever, but it's also okay to be happy, and it's okay to open, and it's okay to feel smashed sometimes, and it's okay not to feel smashed sometimes, and it's okay to be closed off, and it's okay to not want to talk, but it's also okay to talk and be vulnerable with other people. And it means nothing about anyone in what we say or express about ourselves, but often we're taught to feel and experience other people's emotions, and it scares us, and it kind of tries to force to crack us open, but we're not ready to crack open. We're terrified to crack open. That's the density. That's the dark. That's the stuff that's going on. All these people that are causing harm to other people are people that were harmed in the first place. And they're just propagating that closedness to make it okay that they can stay closed when they really need a chance to breathe. They maybe need somebody with permission that's going to hug them. They maybe need somebody that's going to love them and feel loved. And you want to feel loved back, and you want to feel touched back. And look at the world. It's just torn this all away from us, so that we've been forced to find ourselves, to go inside and to find that in ourselves before we ask for that from another. That's how immense this loving is. And it feels like crying, and it feels like tears, and it feels terrifying, and it feels like cracking open and exposing ourselves violently to other people, because other people aren't ready to see it. But it's the very permission that they need to be able to move through and move open, and being in our vulnerability and saying, this happened to me and this hurt, and I felt really like it was all my fault, or whatever. This sharing, this opening, this expressing, this showing how maybe damaged we are, or uncomfortable we are, or sad, or whatever. That's the love that's underneath all this. It's all love. The density, the crushing is a kind of love that's just trying to get us to finally make a choice. And it just beats on us sometimes until we're almost dead, and we're laying on the street and all this kind of stuff, until we realize one day, and all that stuff cracks away, and you clean your eyes and you look, and the tears are coming down, and it's like, fuck, I've been watched over all this time. Somebody's been watching me. I didn't die. It didn't die a pauper and suffer and whatever. As soon as I'm vulnerable with someone else sees that light in me, and that's when the magic starts to happen. And it looks dirty and gritty and so ugly, but when you clean it all off, and you wash the tears out, and you rain the sorrows down your body, and you get crushed by the grief and all this kind of stuff, it's taking off the layers, the crunch, this is all I am. And it's like, no, you're this, you're not this. And it's just trying to show you, but it doesn't know any other way. Is it going to sit there and say, oh, goo, 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 I love you, you're all okay? No, you need to be crushed to eventually release all the beliefs, all the programming, all the I'm not worthy, I'm shitty, I'm bad, I'm whatever. And that's a punch in the gut sometimes, and that's getting abused or used or whatever, until we can eventually stand up and create our boundaries and start to make better choices and have hard conversations and fucking choose us before we choose somebody else, and have that thing and say, no fucking way you're going to do that to me, or no, I'm not going to live that way, or you're not going to talk to me like that. Those are the things in the moment where we all of a sudden love ourselves. And it feels gritty and messy, and it's like, oh shit, I did that at somebody else's expense, but they needed that too. That very us standing up and being the example. How many people have you met and it's like, holy shit, what the hell happened to them? They've changed. That's what density will do to you. It'll take you and crush you until one day you fucking pick up your power and you say, no more. And that to other people looks scary and dark and ugly, but it's love. It's love for yourself. And when we haven't had it, we've given it away, and we're told that we can't have it and it's not worthy and blah, 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 we will have to pick it up with power. We will have to pick it up with our maybe some anger and frustration and finally step in our power, because those are the places where those things are. And we were taught those are bad, or those are ugly, those are messy. Guess what? They terrify other people because they're not ready to use it. Or the people that are using it against you are using it in malevolence and control and no light. But anger or frustration has light in it, or it can, with accountability. It gives us our power. It's like, no fucking way. Use the words, use the effing, the punctuation marks. Change happens in that moment. So love is not this squishy, kiss me on the face, give me Valentine's candies or whatever. Love is, fuck, I'm choosing me for once, right here and right now. I'm saying no, I'm saying whatever. And that's the first steps. And then those first steps go and you find more and more people and you lose friends and things fall away and shit gets real and maybe you lose a house and maybe your kids can't be with you for a while or whatever, because you're finding yourself and it's messy and gritty, and you find people all along the way that want to have those same experiences or the opposite of it, and you bash and crash and cry and poop and whatever. But that's ultimately the love that will fucking serve you for the rest of your life. The love that is the light, the love that finds balance, the love that will tear down darkness and expose it and talk to people about it and say no more. Where the fuck do you get off saying that? Where's this? Where's that? That's fucking love. That's the most intense, powerful expression of your love, to say no when you finally mean no, and feel safe to say no, and feel in your power to say no. That's love. That's love. That other part of love, that other squishy, squashy stuff, yeah, that can be part of it. But it's fucking bypassed all of our power out of it. And where do we get to choose ourselves in any of that? The more I can make you not self-love yourself and love me and please me and all this kind of stuff, I can take whatever I want from you. But I don't choose to do that. But how many people have we lived with and been with and all this kind of stuff that didn't know any better, that we suffered under and hated ourselves for or whatever, but we knowingly gave it because we didn't know any other choice. We were trained from birth. So nothing is wrong, nothing is bad, but look at the density and the darkness of love having to slap us in the face, kick us in the ass, rape us, whatever you want to call it, that broke us down, got us addicted, got us to the point of the lowest of the low, until we had to make a real choice. Instead of like muscling along and hoping for the best and blah, 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 it kicked us in the ass and said, here you are, make a choice. That's the process. And yeah, this is going to scare some people. And I know there's people out there that are just like love and light and somehow getting through, but I don't think that's the full process. And the people that are really, really standing in their power and going into their warrior and finding all these pieces and facets and this kind of stuff, those are the people you're going to want to have by your side. Those are world builders. Those are creators. Those are the ones that are the healers through their example and their light. And they will be direct, and they will tell you the truth, and they will hold and stand by your side, or walk away when you need it, or whatever's required to get you woke up as quick as possible. And I'm one of them. And I'm raw and fucking direct and whatever. I'm not for everybody, but the ones that are and stay and listen to the end of the video, you're going to know this is truth. I love you. You're amazing. We're getting through this. Love is very different from what we were told. Talk to you soon. You got this. You're doing amazing. Thank you.